So who will win round two in the battle for reform of South Africa's pension fund schemes? Cosatu already won last year's round, forcing proposed changes to be delayed from the 1st of March this year to the 1st of March next year. Now we're going into another battle. This is the MoneyMakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight I speak to Ismail Momoniat, Deputy Director General of Tax at the National Treasury. He joins us on the phone from Pretoria. And in studio we have Cosatu's pension fund coordinator, Mahlangu, about the hurdles posed by the many debated reforms that the National Treasury would like to see passed into law. Mahlangu, for simplicity's sake, in small words, what are your big concerns around pension reform?
Our biggest concerns are the following. Firstly, that the retirement funds are deferred wages of workers. So it cannot be for them, about them, without them. So if you say, let's do preservation, we do preservation outside other policy matters, that to us is a major problem.
Okay, so deferred wages, Ismail Momoniat, National Treasury wants us all to be a bit more responsible about the way in which we go about saving for our own retirement. Cosatu says you're simply taking money away out of workers' pay packets now to give back to them at some point in the future. They might never live to get the benefit of that payment into the future. Therefore, you being unreasonable. Your response?
No, I think we agree with Cosatu that, these are, I guess, a form of deferred income and that they belong to the workers and that nobody, absolutely nobody, should get a cent of that money but the member. So we agree on that score. I think the issue is what we also want to do is obviously help people. And let me say that we've not changed any of the preservation requirements in the legislation that's there. This is an issue of, if you get the tax deduction, we want you to annuitize. And what we want to do is to allow workers, on the one hand, to take home more monthly pay because, members of provident funds, for their own contribution thus far, have not enjoyed a tax deduction. And we're sort of saying, why are we denying them that tax deduction? But, of course, in return for the tax deduction, we do want people to, at the end of their working career, to take 1/3 as lump sum and put 2/3 into an annuity. And let me say, we also know that as far as the annuities are concerned, that the current annuity system is not the best of all systems, that it requires reforms. We're looking at issues like charges. We're looking at issues like what happens if people die young. They also want to see their beneficiaries benefit. So, we certainly want to look at all those issues. And, we've had a paper on just some of the shortcomings.
But if you're not yet in a position, Ismail Momoniat, to make those guarantees to Cosatu, to say, look, the pension fund system is being reformed to a point where the workers, or at least their beneficiaries' rights are guaranteed in terms of the money they spent their entire career saving, is it not unreasonable to go to workers and say, you need to save for a future you might not have?
No, I don't know why you would say that. I think that what I'm saying is that on the one hand, we don't want to deny workers the opportunity to have higher monthly income and enjoy the tax deduction just as everybody else, whether in pension funds or retirement annuities, enjoys that benefit. Of course, that benefit is linked to annuitization. And the fact of the matter is that we've also increased the so-called de minimis threshold, the threshold, and we recognize vested rights. So all the funds that, for example, that people have accumulated in their provident funds, that doesn't come under the new law, assuming the new law goes ahead.
All right. Mahlangu, I mean, what Ismail Momoniat says sounds entirely reasonable. As somebody who is conscientiously saving for what I hope will be a long and fruitful retirement, it seems not an unreasonable request on behalf of the National Treasury. Why are they, in your view, being unreasonable?
Bruce, it's very interesting. Let's go back to the late 70s, early 80s. We established provident funds for our members. Surely, Bruce, that was being very reasonable, looking at the future and say this is what we want to build for ourselves. The main issue here is that we appreciate the other issues that Momo have raised, you know, the high charges, etc., etc. On the tax deduction, in the absence of comprehensive social security and retirement funds, we are saying, fine, allow these members a tax deduction, and when they retire, if they opt to take a lump sum, then surely tax them on the basis of the tax they're supposed to pay. However, we are saying we cannot have a compulsory preservation in the absence of mandatory contribution, in the absence of a social security, in particular for those who might be retrenched. Bruce, you know, as I know, that people are being retrenched as we speak. Now, why should we talk about preservation in the absence of a base that, you know, will take care of these workers? That is fundamentally a problem. But I think any suggestion that says we unreasonably see if these provident funds were created by somebody for us, no, they were created by workers.
Okay, I mean, Ismail Momoniat, in a society where jobs are pretty much guaranteed for life, if those things still exist, and where you jump from white-collar job to white-collar job, you go up the income scale, preservation makes a whole bunch of sense because you're going from income to income. In the case, as Mahlangu points out this evening, where you've got workers who from time to time go through massive retrenchment, whether it be on the mines, whether it be at the moment in South African industry, those monies that you want to preserve could be the difference between life and death, couldn't they?
Yes, and again, you know, I agree with Jan. I mean, the point is that that's why we're not making any changes to preservation in the Act. But we do want to talk about preservation because it's an important topic to talk about. The point is that in the current system, effectively, by the way, even for annuitization, there's many holes. Like when you resign, you can cash out everything. So even in putting this law forward, there are many holes that we have to fix up. We've had quite extensive discussions since 2012 with the labor movement and the labor constituency at NADLAC, where initially, yes, we took, for example, a much firmer position on preservation. But certainly we got persuaded that you can't have a preservation system that doesn't take into account that people may be unemployed or something happens to them. So are there circumstances when they can withdraw some funds? And we, in fact, had put up a proposal to say we would allow a small percentage cumulative up to a certain point to be taken out. So I'm saying that we're not arguing either for 100% preservation, and it's something that we want to have for discussion. But the answer also can't be that you can always take away 100% as well, because that's going now to the other extreme. So, you know, it's a matter of proportion here.
Ismail Momoniat, you guys seem to agree a lot more than you actually disagree. So what is the fundamental issue here? Because we've got National Treasury wanting to reform the whole of the pension system. Cosatu saying, hold on a second, we want to preserve the rights of workers in this process. What is the key sticking point, Jan?
The key sticking point is that we have agreed in NATLEC for the past 10 years that government will release a discussion paper on comprehensive social security, table it in NATLEC to deal, among other issues, the very issue we are actually raising. Now, we were surprised that, yes, there are tax issues, then preservation through the back window was thrown into the basket. So that's what is a problem. And all what we're saying is that workers are saying, no, hold on, keep your word. Let's go back to the agreement we have reached in NATLEC insofar as the discussions on this, on this paper is concerned. Mom is correct that discussion started in 2012. But Bruce, you and I agree that if we talk 100 times and disagree 100 times, it means we've disagreed 100 times. It doesn't matter how many times we've actually met. That is the point here. Yes, and I think that point is very fundamental. But insofar as NATLEC is concerned, we started last year. In fact, the discussions in NATLEC are simply, in reality, they've not started because we said as September.
I need to give the last word to Ismail Momoniat this evening. Ismail Momoniat, you seem to be being tied up in knots here. Are we ever going to see any kind of substantive retirement reform, which is required in order to get South Africa into the 21st century in terms of financial reforms? But Cosatu seems very keen on fighting its corner very hard.
Well, I mean, I think, and here there is a difference that, do you wait for everything you want in life and in one big bang. I mean, Social Security reform is a complex issue. And, every day that you then delay on some obvious reforms to the retirement system means that members don't benefit, but, you continue to have high charges, you continue to have the wrong people, in fact, benefiting from delay as well. So that's why we've been, and look, we hear all the concerns. I mean, as a public servant, we put out things, we then take public comment, and you try and find a consensus. We try and deal with concerns. And, the bill is before Parliament currently, so it's up to Parliament to make the decision. It's for us just to put the arguments. But, one thing, and I'm sure Jan will agree, the point is we need to be all quite united, whether you're the leadership of unions, of government, to go out and communicate to workers and provide a message. I think that shouting and screaming about our differences doesn't actually help. It freaks out people, and I think it's very important that we communicate this fully. Retirement's too important to people just to kind of deal with the issue only in a public, through public debates. I'm saying that
Ismail Momoniat, I'm going to leave you there, but thank you very much for coming through for us this evening. Ismail Momoniat is the head of tax at the National Treasury. Mahlangu, do we not run the risk here of so busy fighting for workers' rights today that you get to a point when they get to retirement one day, the guys have still got jobs, that they retire into poverty anyway?
Bruce, very, very important question. Look, if we talk about the delay, we just linked it to your question. If for the past, for example, let's say for the past 15 years, when we started discussions on this matter, government played the ball, we couldn't be having these discussions, Bruce. We'll be dealing with a real matter, engaging on these issues. We have rejected piecemeal approach. We are going to continue to reject it. Who's delaying is government. Why are they then coming on a piecemeal, throwing one thing? That's what it is a problem on this matter. Lastly, Bruce, as we speak, for the last 12 months, which is July up to June this year, just below 86,000 civil servants have resigned. It's a crisis. We are not counting the private sector. So it is a crisis. Government must hold on this matter. Let's deal with this matter properly. No preservation through the big window. Then we'll resolve this issue.
Your contention is 86,000 civil servants have resigned to get their money on their pension pots before preservation becomes law.
Yes, because of this ill-conceived law.
But that's personal choice. That's personal choice.
It's not only that. There were a number of reasons. One of the reasons was that why is government continuing with this thing when in fact there are discussions in NADLEC and they have not been concluded? Instead of concluding discussions, then you have these individual consultations outside NADLEC, and the next thing is Parliament. That's the reason why. And we're saying, hold on, let's deal with this matter responsibly. We're not screaming. All what we're saying is that workers are saying, no, it's our deferred wage and no one's going to touch them.
There we go. Fascinating discussion, and a really complex one as well for hammering out between Jan Mahlangu, who is Cosatu's pension fund coordinator, and also Ismail Momoniat, the Deputy Director General of Tax at the National Treasury. Deferred wages or looking after yourself in your old age. There'll be more Moneymakers and more conundrums next time on the Moneymakers. Till then, thank you for watching. Good night.